Okay, so last Thursday, I got up early in the morning, and at 9 a.m. my time, I made a speech to a Congress in Yalta that was held to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the famous conference in Yalta in 1945. I'm going to read that speech now and record it on my iPhone because I want to, okay, because I think it's important. So here we go. Fasten your seatbelts, okay? To quote, what's her name, that actress, this could be a bumpy ride. Anyway, here we go. Thank you for inviting me to speak here today on this historic anniversary. Last month, I addressed the Security Council of the United Nations on the 10th anniversary of the signing of the Minsk II agreements. Anyone who's interested can check it out at UN TV. I stuck that day to the agenda, which was Ukraine and Crimea and the Donbass and the war in Ukraine. But I did include mention of the right sector and Stephen Bandera and the place of white supremacism in Ukrainian politics today. But I did not digress. Today, I am not restricted by protocol, and so, with your permission, I will digress as I see fit. Okay. Every morning when I awake, my chest tightens and tears well up. I get a grip and gird my loins for the fray. What can I do today? Why do I prepare for battle every day? Because every day we are fighting the existential battle for the soul of the human race. If we live in the West, our government is aiding and abetting the genocide of the indigenous people of Palestine by the rogue state of Israel. They're doing it in real time in front of our very eyes. It feels like a nightmare, but it's not a nightmare. It is real. We pinch ourselves in disbelief. This can't be real. If we have children, they tug at us. Mama, Papa, make them stop. Hey, Mum, Dad, why doesn't somebody make them stop? Papa, what about the United Nations, Papa? What about international law, Papa? What about the Geneva Conventions, Papa? They're killing the children, Papa. They're burying them under the rubble, Papa. Make them stop. And then I take a breath. Why do you think I'm here in Yalta? It's a good question, though, isn't it? What about international law? What about the United Nations? Okay, we're here today to mark the 80th anniversary of a meeting between three men, Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. They met here in Yalta in March 1945, or was it February? I think it was February, to sort of divvy up what was left of Europe after the Second World War. They did that without too much fuss, but they also, no, it was March. It was March. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused. But they did that without too much fuss, divvying up. But they also discussed trying to replace the League of Nations, which had failed to prevent the Second World War, by creating a new international forum that might succeed where the League of Nations had failed. Good idea. Tighten up the rules a bit. Call it the United Nations. That has a nice ring to it. So they did. The United Nations Charter was drafted and signed in San Francisco that very summer. And lo and behold, surprise, surprise, our three chums from Yalta, from the Yalta summit, joined by France and China, the other two perceived victors of World War II, were all appointed permanent members in the most important council of the newly formed United Nations, the Security Council. And what is the Security Council? And why is it important? Well, the Security Council was and is important because its primary responsibility is, and I quote, maintaining international peace and security, including determining threats to peace and taking measures to restore it and establishing peacekeeping operations, end quote. Good God, sounds great. Did it work? Well, there was just one little wrinkle. Aha, go on. Well, Stalin, Churchill and Roosevelt had agreed in Yalta that not only should they be permanently represented in the Security Council, but they should also each individually have the power to veto any Security Council resolution. Of course, France and China chimed in. Oh, me too, me too. So now it was the Big Five, and the Big Five made it very clear to the smaller nations, either you have a UN Charter with our veto or no UN Charter at all. I say, that wasn't very democratic, was it? Well, no. But the United Nations founding principles sounded pretty good. So all the little guys agreed. These are the founding principles. 1, to maintain international peace and security. 2, to protect human rights. 3, to deliver humanitarian aid. And 4, to uphold international law. Excuse me. And did they? Well, they did number 3 a bit, but the other stuff was too difficult, hamstrung as they were and still are by the Big Five's power of veto in the Security Council. I have no doubt they did the best they could. Anyway, after the war, Germany was duly carved up into 4 zones, occupied by the military of the US, the UK, France, and the USSR. But there's more to the story. 3.5 years later, on the 10th of December 1948, the fledgling United Nations reconvened in Paris. And among other things, they signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That declaration, partially written, I'm told, by Eleanor Roosevelt, FDR's missus, one for the ladies. Thank you, ladies. The 30 articles were then enshrined in international law, or so we were led to believe. It was a very big deal. At the time, the dream of equal human rights for all our brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of their religion or ethnicity or nationality, was a very big deal. Think about it. Think about it. If adopted, it would probably have signaled the end of all war forever, and absolutely definitely would have removed the threat of another genocide forever. What a fitting way to remember and also universally condemn the very recent attempted genocide of European Jews by the Nazis. Our leaders, with hand on heart, made it a solemn promise: never again. But as they made that promise, and I hate to have to be the one to tell you this, some of them had their fingers crossed behind their backs. Some of them were telling porcupines. Yeah, some of them were lying. Some of them swore to support and uphold the universal human rights, but they didn't really mean it, because some of them were actually ethno-supremacists, like the Nazis had been. People who believe that some people should have more human rights than others. They believe in human rights, but only for a chosen few. The few that they choose. Let me give you a fleeting glimpse. Come back with me to Palestine in 2007. I was in an UNRWA jeep with a lovely woman called Allegra Pacheco, who worked for the UN. We were heading north through the occupied territory towards Jenin on a brand new highway when I remarked, "Well, at least they have nice roads." "Yes," said Allegra. "They're for Jews only." "Don't be silly, that's ridiculous." "Yes," she replied, "it is ridiculous, but it's also true. If you live here, you have to be Jewish to be allowed to use the road." The point I'm making is that the Israelis don't see it as a contradiction, that genocide was wrong in the Second World War in Europe, in Germany, or say Warsaw in Poland, but it's okay now in Gaza because the jackboot is on the other foot. So the Declaration of Universal Human Rights was a bit of a charade, really, part of a sort of masked ball to celebrate the divvying up of the spoils of war. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Sorry to spoil the party. Most of you are too young to remember. I'm almost too young to remember myself. But I can read, and I have read the history. Take note, Piers Morgan. Anyway, we all dutifully wore our masks to the ball. We declared our attachment to all the right sacred cows. We all declared hand on heart that we cared about human rights, freedom, democracy, and the rule of international law. And yet, now, the jackboot is on the other foot. And so, 35 years ago, I'm digressing now. 35 years ago, in 1990, I wrote a song called Too Much Rope for an album I made called Amused to Death. These are a couple of lines from it. I won't sing it, it's a bit high. You don't have to be a Jew to disapprove of murder. Tears burn my eyes. Muslim or Christian, mullah or pope, preacher or poet, who was it wrote, give any one species too much rope and they'll fuck it up. Well said, son. All right, I'm going to fast forward 79 years from March 1945 to April the 18th last year. Excuse me. On that day, April the 18th last year, the UN Security Council convened to vote on a draft resolution submitted by Algeria, the temporary chair, recommending the state of Palestine be admitted to full UN membership. The draft resolution was not adopted due to a veto by the United States of America. There were 12 votes for the resolution, 2 abstentions, the UK and Switzerland, and the killer blow, the US veto. So why did the USA use its veto to block that resolution? Very good question. They'd been bleating on about peace in the Holy Land for years. The famous two-state solution. You remember the Camp David agreements or meetings? There was no agreement. And yet the USA has used its power of veto 45 times since 1972 to support the state of Israel in everything it does, including, critically, Israel's ongoing occupation of Palestinian land and genocide of its people. Why? Another good question. Maybe that is why I am here today, to attempt to shed some light on it. Excuse me, I'll read that again. Maybe that is why I am here today, to attempt to shed some light on the why of it. I think it may have something to do with an unholy attachment to the ethno-supremacist tendencies I mentioned earlier, and manifest destiny and sacred texts. I'll come back to all that. But it might also be about good old-fashioned greed. It's interesting that Donald Trump, the current president of the United States of America, has recently declared an interest in ethnically cleansing Gaza and developing it as an upmarket tourist attraction, a seaside resort with golf courses and, as I recall from a video he made, a giant golden statue of himself. A nice little earner for Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, no doubt. Not to mention the trillions of cubic meters of natural gas just offshore that rightfully belongs to the indigenous people. I mention manifest destiny and sacred texts because attachment to religious beliefs is undeniably fundamental to this whole conversation. Another digression. In 1964, in his famous ballot bullet speech, Brother Malcolm X had this to say. I won't attempt an impersonation of Brother Malcolm. I'm not here tonight to discuss my religion. I'm not here to try and change your religion. I'm not here to argue or discuss anything that we differ about, because it's time for us to submerge our differences and realize that it is best for us to first see that we have the same problem, a common problem, a problem that will make you catch hell, whether you're a Baptist or a Methodist or a Muslim or a nationalist. Brother Malcolm didn't say, or a Jew, that night. So I'm adding it for him, or a Jew. The point being that in terms of human rights, our religion should be irrelevant, or, as Brother Malcolm put it, left at home in the closet. Back to Brother Malcolm. Whether you're educated or illiterate, whether you live on the boulevard or in the alley, you're going to catch hell just like I am. We are all in the same boat, and we are all going to catch the same hell from the same man. He just happens to be a white man. All of us have suffered here in this country political oppression at the hands of the white man, economic exploitation at the hands of the white man, and social degradation at the hands of the white man. Now, in speaking like this, it doesn't mean that we're anti-white, but it does mean we're anti-exploitation, we're anti-degradation, we're anti-oppression. And if the white man doesn't want us to be anti-him, let him stop oppressing and exploiting and degrading us, whether we are Christians or Muslims or nationalists or agnostics or atheists. We must first learn to forget our differences. If we have differences, let us differ in the closet. When we come out in front, let us not have anything to argue about until we get finished arguing with the man. Let us leave our religion in the closet. Thank you, Brother Malcolm. By the way, for white man, please read European man. Back in the day before the Israel lobby gave me up as a lost cause, they used to try and quiet me down by saying things like, Roger, you'll catch more bees with honey than vinegar. Wouldn't you rather be seen as like Martin Luther King than Malcolm X? Yeah, I can smile now. Maybe the US representative always uses the power of veto to support Israel because the USA is still an essentially European colony at heart. When the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth Rock, when Mr. Christopher Columbus sailed the sea without a compass, when the Portuguese landed in Brazil, they all of the above did so driven by manifest destiny. They all had divine providence and the blessing of the church on their side. The abundant land in the West, the New World, across the ocean, was their Zion. They said so. So, with God on their side, they conquered all. They lied to the local people. They signed treaties they never meant to keep. They plundered, raped, all that good old Proud Boy bullshit. The genocide of the indigenous people in the Holy Land is just a rerun of the genocide of the indigenous peoples in the New World. Brother Malcolm's white man is still that same good old European boy. So thank you, Brother Malcolm, and thank you, Brother Martin Luther King. You both hold a place very close to my heart. And, Brother King, I share your dream. It is a good dream. And we are here today to hold on to that dream. We're holding on to it as best we can here in Yalta today and all over the world, including in Europe. Millions of our brothers and sisters daily take to the streets to protest the genocide of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Students risk being battered by militarized police, while exercising their First Amendment rights to protest on college campuses. Yes, thank you, Mahmoud. Thank you, Mahmoud Kahil. Is that right? Khalil, sorry. Thank you, Mahmoud Khalil. I'm sorry, brother, I got your name wrong. You are one of those millions, but we are all part of the same choir. We sing with one voice. The fundamental question is, can we raise the volume of the voices in the crowd to a level where we can affect the way our governments behave? Because at the moment, our governments are behaving very badly, rooted as they are in their white, supremacist, racist European history. They are standing in our way. They stand between us and progress toward our goal. Progress towards the Holy Grail. And what is the Holy Grail? The Holy Grail is the implementation of the Declaration of Universal Human Rights made in Paris all those years ago. So I think it's established we can't leave anything up to our leaders. And speaking of our leaders, much of our attention right now is focused on the new administration in Washington, D.C. Which way will Donald Trump jump? His actions actually speak louder than words. His actions tell us he couldn't care less about anyone's rights but his own. He is at least open and honest about that. His plan is obvious. It is to enrich himself and his immediate family, and then Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and the rest of the oligarchs, all the 0.0001% of us. And that is what he will do. And the rest of us, welcome to the 99.999%. We, the rest of us, stand at the crossroads. As I said before, we're all engaged in the existential battle for the soul of the human race. Which path should we take? Can we hold on to Martin Luther King's dream? How can we explain that the crime of genocide is unspeakable? Whoever's foot wears the jackboot. Is there a reason we call the crime of genocide unspeakable? What if the unspeakable crime of genocide turns out to be the Achilles heel of Zionism? Because unspeakable as it is, it invites us to stare like Narcissus at our own reflection in the pool. What if through the surface of the pool we see our own unspeakable reflection? What if we European colonizers have to confront our own history of genocide in both North and South America and Africa and Australasia? The colonies of empire, be they English or Spanish or Dutch or Portuguese or French or German, were never home to anything to be proud of, built as they were on the unspeakable. For hundreds of years, we Europeans committed the unspeakable in God's name. The rest was theatre. Is any of this ringing any bells? All the fine words spoken in declarations of independence, all the constitutions writ large in flowing script on fine parchment were theatre. The pretense of liberty, freedom, democracy, it was all just theatre. Look into the pool, Narcissus. All the artifact of Hollywood cannot conceal the depths of depravity that is our common history. What is that thing that Americans in particular, but really all white men fear so much? We all fear being exposed for who we really are. We fear, in other words, the blinding light of truth. The truth is that what Western governments are doing when they support Israel's psychotic bloodbath is not simply justifying Israel's horrific crimes. They are also defending themselves, standing, as they do, perched precariously on very shaky, very unstable ground, shame-ridden in defense of their indispensable imperial pasts. Okay. I might as well be hung for a sheep as a goat. Sacred texts. Specifically, the Old Testament in the Bible, which may be, though I'm no expert, a sort of rewrite of the Torah. Without the Old Testament and its stories of a victimized Hebrew people mercifully rescued by a vengeful, bloodthirsty, land-obsessed God, we Europeans would have had nothing to give a fake, higher meaning to our own barbaric colonial past. So, if enough of us look into the pool and see through the Achilles heel, we will see the truth. It is not just God who is giving Israel permission to continue its murderous rampage. It is our leaders too. So if we all look into each other's eyes and recognize there our shared humanity, we, the choir, can stand shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, manning the barricades, face to face with them. Trump, Netanyahu, Starmer, Musk, Zuckerberg, and all their ilk, and armed with love and truth, we can raise the strength of all our voices joined together in harmony to say, enough. This is the ending of your road. We are not lemmings. We are human beings. We will not move one solitary inch towards your Armageddon. Today, at the crossroads, we came across a child alone. We will not stand aside and let your bulldozers pass us by. No. We will not stand aside. Here we will stand with Rachel Corrie, Shireen Abu Akleh, Mariella Franco and all the rest, and embrace this child. And together we will bring this child